Hi, and welcome to the Life They Live podcast. I'm the host, Nina, and today I'm having a conversation with Till and Marco from the successful YouTube channel Broken Window Theory. If you already know the podcast, nice to see you again. Don't hesitate to leave a like to support the channel. And if you're new here, hi, let me tell you a bit more about this podcast. In each episode, I interview guests on their passions so that they can share their story and inspire us. I believe that passions can help overcome fears. That's why passions are so important to me. In this episode, I interview Till and Marco, who are urban explorers from Germany. They explore abandoned places such as residential homes, factories, hospitals, and they share their discoveries on their YouTube channel that now has more than 300,000 followers. In this video, they will talk about what urbex is, why they started urbex, what the dangers of urbex are, as well as how urbex changed their mindset and what urbex tells us about the future of mankind. If you're interested, then make sure to keep on watching. In this video, you'll have access to photographs taken by the Broken Window Theory crew. If you like this video, don't hesitate to support the podcast by liking or giving a comment. Any feedback is always appreciated. I also want to thank once more Till and Marco for featuring as guests on my podcast. So hi, Till and Marco. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I'm very happy you accepted to be here. How are you doing?
Very fine. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, of course, it's a pleasure. I mean, I'm very excited to learn more about urbex also, and you have a lot of experience, so it's definitely going to be a great conversation. And I can't wait to hear more about it. But before you can maybe introduce yourself in a few words, maybe for the people that don't know you.
Yeah, we are Marco and Till. We are two filmmakers from Germany, and we are doing urban exploration, which is exploring ruins all around the world for about 10 years now. We're producing little documentaries where we tell about the history of the places, and we are uploading them to YouTube since 2016, so for quite some time now.
Okay, great. Yeah, we're going to talk about how you started because I'm kind of curious to know more about that. Before, I don't know if you want to do like a little disclaimer before we start about urbex and also explain what urbex is, because I realized preparing this episode actually that some people don't even know what urbex is. So maybe it would be nice to explain it a little.
Yeah, so I think there are a bunch of definitions for the term urban exploration. It can be like different things. For us, it's exploring abandoned places. But for other people, this can mean infiltrating half-active hospitals or climbing on roofs and stuff like this. But we are exclusively focusing on abandoned places most of the times, because for us, it's basically the most interesting part to see these ruins and what's left behind. And you mentioned a disclaimer. That's something we are doing before we start every of our videos, because exploring abandoned places is usually a bit dangerous, and most of the time it's not legal at all. So what we are doing is trespassing most of the time. So we can get trouble with the law, like basically every time we are on the road. And that's why you should really think about this before you start exploring. So just a quick disclaimer.
I think the term pretty much describes it very good, because it's urban exploration. It's pretty much what we did. We were about 17 years old, I think, and we were just roaming around, and we discovered by accident an abandoned factory, and there was on the lower levels there was an open window, and we thought, why not just go for it? So we entered the place because it felt pretty exciting. It was something new. And automatically we got completely, the atmosphere of the place was amazing. We never have seen something like that before. And it really, the atmosphere caught us. So we were exploring this place. We saw stuff we haven't seen before. And it was like a big adventure playground.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine the scene. It was in the middle of the night, I think. And then we saw stuff like there was a radiation sign at some point. I'm not sure why, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't like a radioactive factory. But this was weird for us. Then there was a wall painted red. It looks actually like somebody shot himself there, but of course it was just paint, we hope.
Yeah.
So it was pretty intense and thrilling, actually. And it got us hooked. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I
So
can imagine, for sure. But so you kind of just ended up there, or did you actually plan the
it was
trip
not
beforehand?
planned at all.
No.
It just happened.
You already knew that it existed, urban exploration, or it's after that experience that you started kind of researching a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. We got into the hobby, let's call it hobby, because we researched for another abandoned place online. So pretty much around our hometown, and we came across this factory and that place, and all of a sudden we came across this term urban exploration, and we looked it up, and we realized that there's a big international community doing what we did by accident. And then we saw some examples, some photos people took all around the world of abandoned ships, hospitals, bunkers deep underground, and we were fascinated because pretty much everything you can see in your everyday life, it already exists abandoned, and that's a fascinating thought.
Yeah, I can imagine, for sure. And so this podcast is about passions. I interview guests on their passions. So I also wanted to ask you how it became a passion, because there's a difference with just exploring one site and then actually make it become like your job and spending so much time on it.
Yeah, I think that's because, as I mentioned earlier, it hooked us. We really wanted to see more of these places. We started to travel to different countries just to see abandoned places and explore them. These road trips were like 10 days long. Sometimes it was just a week, sometimes it was 2 weeks, but we really traveled exclusively to see abandoned places because we really loved to do this. And I don't know, we were always avid with like photography and editing videos and shooting videos. So it was pretty normal for us that we thought about uploading these adventures to YouTube. So we just did it, like with every exploration we filmed, we uploaded this to YouTube. And so we started our YouTube channel. And I mean, now we have almost 200 episodes online on our channel and 300,000 subscribers from all over the world. So it's crazy if you think how this started with us roaming around in the middle of the night and just approaching this abandoned factory. So it's absolutely crazy.
And it's and often when we talk with other people about what we do, they cannot really understand what's so interesting about abandoned houses, because most of the people, they think of mold and dust, and just you get dirty when you get inside and you can hurt yourself. But these places, they've got an atmosphere which is quite special, and especially as photographers, you find motifs there you cannot find in the rest of the world. So for us, it was pretty much a bit like sightseeing, maybe. I think people from the US, they come to Paris to see the Tower of Paris, and then they go to London, and everywhere they visit those cities to see something special. And we did the same, but maybe a bit off the beaten track.
Yeah, I mean, I find it a bit curious that you say that people sometimes may wonder why you do this, because on my side, I had the impression that most people are kind of intrigued by urban exploration. So I thought that, I don't know, like, do you think most people are kind of intrigued by it, or that's not really the impression that you get?
It's hard to say because there are really a lot of people who like it, but there are also a lot of people who really don't like it at all. I think the
Okay.
people who like it, they like it for different aspects. Some like it because they can go there to these places and be alone, because abandoned places are exactly this, abandoned. There are no people at all. So some people go there to take a break from society. And for example, if these people are artists, they go there with their spray can and do a great um, piece of art with their graffiti, or other people even go there to play music. We experienced this as well. So people like it for the most different reasons. But as I said, people also don't like it because it's illegal, it's dirty, and they have like other hobbies.
If you think of
Yeah.
it like a touristic attraction, kind of, then most of the people, they like to take a path which is already clean and nice and everything is prepared. You've got this viewpoint there, you can look at the nice waterfall, and then you go down the path and you've got a restaurant, everything is prepared. And for urban exploration, it really gives you this aspect of exploring. Therefore the name, it's
Mm-hmm.
you have to find your own path, and there's something new around every corner, and this is what really got us
Yeah.
hooked with this hobby.
Yeah, in fact, it's a cheap and easy way to go on an adventure. You don't have to travel far. I mean, you can just go to the abandoned building in your hometown, then go inside with your camera and explore. And there you have it, a great adventure on your free afternoon, for example.
Yeah, it's funny because on my previous podcast episode, I had a conversation with a tour leader, and we talked a bit about, especially for Europeans, sometimes you feel like you have to go, to, I don't know, Asia or America to really have a big adventure. And actually, with the pandemic, especially, a lot of people couldn't travel. And sometimes, in your hometown or not far from your house, you can have adventures. You don't always need to go to the further, place. So I think that's interesting that you mentioned that now. And yeah, I can imagine that if you talked about tourism, that we all have different, ways of being tourists. So for sure, some people, it might fit them that way, and then for others, maybe that's not what they are comfortable with. So
Maybe this exploring abandoned places is also some kind of dark tourism. Maybe I'm not really sure with the term, but people stop wanting to see these mainstream locations overall in the world because it's like mainstreamy to do this, and they want to see something different. So maybe more people start with exploring abandoned places. I think we could see this during the pandemic already. And I think more people started with this hobby during the pandemic. It got a bit hyped. At least it was like that over here in Germany.
Yeah.
okay.
And in fact, it's not only people doing it on their own. There are, for example, guided tours to Chernobyl by now, which was a few years back. This was like the holy grail to explore. There are movies and video games about it, like Stalker, I don't know, that's a very old game. And you can roam around the ruins, and by now there are white buses rushing in with guided groups checking out the place. It's
making it touristy again. So, I mean, you need now, it's getting mainstreamy to go to Chernobyl.
Yeah.
So now you need a different place to go to, or like a different approach to see Chernobyl. There are also these stalker tours, like going there without a guide and exploring it on your own. It's, of course, dangerous because it's a radioactive zone, at least partly. So, yeah, I can see why many people want to rather go there with a guide.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you've been doing this before the pandemic, so you can probably have a good idea of how it's progressing and developing. So yeah, I didn't really think about the fact that with the pandemic it's more and more common, but that does make sense. And you also mentioned that you started a YouTube channel because you had experience in photography. So was that part of your studies, or how did you have that experience?
At least it was like that for me. I always knew that I want to do something with video. When I was a kid, I played a lot with my like camera, and then later with the smartphone, and filmed stuff and edited that stuff. And then after the school, I was an intern in a local TV station, and I really, really liked it there to like shoot the news and edit the news the same day, and then I see the final product at the end of the day in the news show. So I decided to study this whole thing, TV production, specialized in TV camera work. So I went to Leipzig for this and lived there for 4 years and worked in a TV station again next to my studies. So I really, really learned a lot during that time. So it was only natural to integrate this knowledge into our urban exploration project. That's why you can see this documentary approach in our current videos, I think.
Yeah. So we've got the same interests, and we met in school and we became friends because of that, because of the shared fascination for video production. But for me, it was my father who gave me my first camera, and then I traveled a lot always. As soon as I got some free time, I traveled, and I took a lot of pictures, and I like shooting video and I like taking pictures, but I'm not much of a cutter, so most of that is Marco's job. But I had some experiences in working on a film set, for example, but I studied environmental engineering for 4 years.
Okay.
So that's got nothing to do with this, what we do by now. And so, yeah, I kind of gathered some experiences by just doing it. And Marco is the brain.
But studying this also helped us. I mean, with the whole asbestos thing, for example.
Yeah,
so it has
yeah.
actually some connections to abandoned places. Maybe you can explain this with asbestos.
Well, urban exploration is dangerous because of some things. One of them is, of course, directly hurting yourself by falling into a hole, hitting your knee, stepping into a rusty nail, something like that.
Mostly it's dark in these places, so you don't see this.
Yeah, and everything is rotten. Mm-hmm. But then you've got more, it's not that obvious, for example, mold.
Invisible dangers.
Yeah, mold, asbestos, other building materials they used back in the days, or for example, if something got burned and you inhale that stuff, it can be quite toxic. And one part of my studies was to think about how to tear down abandoned buildings and to do the whole thing safe. So I learned quite something about all that materials, which comes in quite handy now. We don't see much explorers who use FFP3 protection masks, for example, and they better should do it. It's not really fun.
In our videos, we don't often wear them, but if it's necessary, I mean, if Till spots something, a scene where it's necessary, we put them on, and then, so we are usually prepared. We also have gloves and when it's necessary.
Yeah, especially, let's say we're talking about urban exploration, somebody sees or listens to this podcast and they want to start with it, please inform yourself, because asbestos, really, it's not so fun. And there are quite easy ways to protect yourself. Wearing a proper respirator mask, wearing gloves. But for example, if you go to a place which is quite, ventilated by air, so a lot of broken windows, maybe it's a bit wet, so there cannot be a big cloud of dust when you walk through it, so it's fine. But for example, you go to a bunker, everything is full of fungus and mold, and you should wear a mask.
Yeah, by now it sounds like there are more reasons not to do urbex, but for us there are even more reasons to do urbex, and that's why we are doing it. I mean, as long as you're prepared for like the negative stuff, it's a great thing to do, basically.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can imagine that you do have to prepare. You can just like walk around and go like that. But I think it's really interesting how you kind of like mix all your passions and your interests, because you talk like now because of your channel, you can like travel, but you're also exploring and you're also doing the editing and you're mixing your knowledge of environmental engineering. So I think that's great. That I don't know if it was conscious or if it just kind of happened, but that you kind of like mix all your interests together as one. I can imagine that's very fulfilling also for you to be at that stage, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have to say, I think both of us, we didn't expect it to make a living from that channel when we started it. We were just we just wanted to explore, and we just wanted to share what we do, and we did. And by now, we kind of make a living from it. So it's something we didn't made a business plan of or something. It just
No, but I
happened.
think that's also a good thing, right? Not to like when you start to just start because you're passionate and not start to make money, or I mean at least
Exactly.
and you're more authentic, I guess, that way. So that's definitely, and then you don't keep it up on the long term if you're just there for the money, I guess. I mean, I don't know, at least that's what I think. You do need to like what you're doing, of course. And
Yeah, and as long this is working for us, I think we should just
True.
do this.
yeah,
And you always have to keep that attitude, I think.
yeah,
So even we're making a living from it, we're still doing it out of passion, not for making a living. So, and I would be pretty happy if it stays like that. So, but I'm pretty sure it does. So
that's
good.
great. Yeah, but I can imagine it's not that easy because you do need to like make a living out of it. So it like yeah, I guess it's not always easy sometimes to keep your feet on the ground, I guess. And yeah, so it's definitely good that you managed to do it. And
Yeah, you can kind of say we are, in a way, artists, and usually artists have problems to gain funds for their projects. We are, by now, we are kind of privileged. We have a lot of patrons on our supporting platform, Patreon, who are giving money to us. This makes this whole thing possible for us. So without them, it would be tricky because our other main source of income is the YouTube algorithm with the monetization of the videos. And I mean, sometimes this doesn't work that well. And it's not a stable income from YouTube. So
yeah, I can
yeah.
imagine.
It's kind of like
But you do benefit for sure from that attitude because I see in all the comments you have that you often have the same recurring comments, people telling you that you have great production quality and great respect for the environments that you visit. So you definitely get rewarded with that. So I think it's nice as long as you're happy with your like where you're going. I think that's the most important. I was going to ask you actually, what is your objective as urban explorers? Do you like on your channel mainly, what is the message you want to share?
So I think we see ourselves as kind of historical preservationists. So we want to keep the memories of the places alive because we can see with a lot of places we've explored a few years back that they got rebuilt or they got teared down. So they don't longer exist in their form when we export them. So for us, it's very important to keep the history of the place alive. That's what we do by shooting the video, telling the history, and uploading it where it's in the internet and you can really delete it. And the second message we put out there is stay curious because exploring is something everybody has it inside them, and that's something we should really do even in our everyday life. So no matter what you do, for us it's urban exploration and traveling in general, but you can stay curious in so many different ways, and that's like the general message of our channel, I would say.
Yeah, I
Great.
think staying curious is something people always did, like our ancestors all the time. And by now, I'm not sure if people really pursue this. Maybe nowadays they are a bit lazy and rather chill at home and watch Netflix and stuff. But still, it's inside of us, the aspect of exploring and staying curious. So I think this makes us happy if we pursue this.
Great. Yeah, I think that fits also with the message of my podcast because for me it's more like stay passionate, I guess. And I always try to show that even if people are listening to this episode but they're not, passionate about urbex, that it doesn't matter. You can still get out of the like from the message, to stay curious, stay passionate, and then you can still like get the energy and then find inspiration from that. And it doesn't mean you have to do urbex or you have to, follow the guest's passion, but you can just, find inspiration in their experience. So I think that's great that you say that. And does it actually the meaning of your channel, Broken Widow Theory, does it have is it connected to that Stay Curious logo?
So the name of our channel, Broken Window Theory, refers to a popular theory which is called broken windows theory, so with an S after the window. And this is a theory about crime, minor crimes, causing more crimes or decay. So this was a popular theory in the 90s, and I think in New York City, police was really after this, and they did this in their everyday life, meaning they, to explain this theory, if there's like an abandoned factory and someone smashes in one of the windows and this window doesn't get repaired anytime soon, they think this means there is more decay to come. So more people come, more vendors, and throw in more windows or tag this whole building with graffiti. And these other crimes were all caused by this one first crime. So what police did back then was to really go after minor crimes. And looking back, this was really like destructive.
Mhm.
For us, this whole theory means that if you go to an abandoned place, it all started with a broken window, like maybe a window to something new, like a new opportunity. So what we are doing now is giving this negative theory a new approach, because the destructive police measurements back then, they really caused something bad, because they did go after all these minor crimes to stop these big crimes, but after all, this didn't work at all. So that's why it has a really bad reputation back then. And we really try to give this theory a new and better meaning now.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know about that theory, so it's interesting to know more about it. And yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna talk also a little bit about that whole vandalism aspect and the fact that it's more accepted. But I think, like you said, in the past maybe it was a bit more taboo. I don't know if we can say it like that. But now, do you think it's like more accepted, or it's still, because like also the fact that you show your face on your YouTube channel, do you think that's because you know that there is likely not to be any repercussions, or how do you feel about that?
I mean, there's always the chance that someone goes after us, but after all, look what we are doing. I mean, we are somehow tourists with cameras, climbing over a fence, going into an abandoned building and taking pictures. So why should they go after us? I mean, there are real criminals out there. Every time we had to face police or security, they were more like, dudes, go away from here. And not, they didn't send us to jail or something.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, what are we doing? Taking pictures. So
yeah, we had encounters with security, and they saw 5 guys in black jackets going into the factory with big backpacks with all our camera gear, and so they expected the worst. They went inside the factory hall. They called for us, and then they realized what we are doing, kind of documenting the place and taking pictures and exploring. And so they became very friendly, and they just said, guys, I'm sorry, you're not allowed. Please leave. And we never had any big consequences. I think one time we paid a fine for trespassing, but we're doing this for 10 years now, so
Yeah, that's not a lot.
it's not that big of a deal.
yeah, it depends on your approach. If you're friendly and don't destroy anything, and
Yeah, it's about respect.
don't steal. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess it depends also on the previous urban explorers that came before you. If the police is used to them, not being respectful, for example, they might be already less inclined to, be nice, I guess. But if everyone kind of keeps that respectful attitude, then probably it doesn't.
Like we said in the beginning, there are different aspects to urban exploration, and I think I speak for both of us when I say that we mostly like the places which are run down and completely forgotten. So we don't really disturb anybody by exploring those places. But there are people who try to go into halfly active power plants, and I can imagine that somebody gets disturbed by it because they've got kind of a security system there. Then somebody goes inside and triggers an alarm, and they are alerted, and then they go there and see that just somebody's taking pictures. That's no direct damage, but nonetheless, they always got this triggering of the security system, which is meant to protect from situations which are worse, of course. But for us, it's the best aesthetic to a place, and most of the time, the most interesting history to a place is from places who are completely forgotten, like ghost towns, and there are tons of
I've
places.
seen those videos that are quite incredible of those ghost towns. So I can imagine you get a particular feeling when you're there. And because you said you want to look at the places that are the most abandoned or most forgotten, do you feel like there are some places like that that are technically like abandoned, but there's so many maybe urban explorers or tourists that at the end it's not that abandoned? I don't know if that makes sense as a question.
Chernobyl.
Yeah, maybe.
Somewhere.
So it makes definitely sense what you said. So it doesn't seem really abandoned anymore because you approach a lot of different people there. It didn't happen that often to us. So when we are going to places, we are usually alone. But of course, sometimes we are meeting other photographers there. But of course, this can happen if you go to a small abandoned place and there are like 2 or 3 different groups. This doesn't really make any fun to explore because it doesn't have the abandoned place vibes anymore.
Yeah.
So,
and it's very rare that you find a true time capsule. So most of the time when you're exploring, you find something which belongs to other explorers or people in general.
Okay.
Often you see motifs people took pictures of, which are staged. So they want to take a good shot and they rearrange the furniture and stuff like that, and it's pretty obvious in most of the cases. So often you've got this feeling of, okay, this place, we are alone here by now, but it's not completely abandoned.
Yeah.
So the best places for us are the places where you really got this illusion of kind of being the last people on Earth.
yeah, like after the apocalypse or something, and where you can see the power of nature. So this is a really incredible thing. We go to places, maybe toxic factories and stuff like that, really dangerous places, dangerous to humans. But what we always see is how nature is coming back. And that's just crazy. And that also gives hope in a way because you see that humankind can try to destroy the world, but it will only destroy itself basically, but never the planet. So the planet will recover after we destroyed ourselves. So that's kinda something good, I guess.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a very weird and interesting feeling at the same time. And talking about, like the places that are abandoned, but there's still urban explorers going there. That's why also you keep the sites private, right? You never really reveal the locations of the site.
Yeah.
It's also to keep that privacy and respect the place, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different if you upload a video and this video gets viewed like 2 million times, something like this. It's really tricky to keep these locations private, but we are trying this with our voiceover. We always have like a voiceover in our videos to tell the history of these places, and we don't share too much of this place, like where it's located or the exact dates.
But it's pretty tricky to be honest, because we want to share the history, we want to tell the facts about the place, and in the same time we try to keep it as uninformative as possible to not make it too easy to find it. But in our way, the way we see it, it's we don't want to keep away other explorers who are exploring the way we do, but we want to keep away people who just want to go there to chill, leave their trash, steal, or even people who steal like copper and other materials. They rip apart the walls, they take the pipes and everything. Those are the people we don't want to share the informations with. But even if we give away the historical facts about the place, you still need some research to find the place. And in our opinion, it's okay to find the place if you put in the work of research. So most of the people who've got like bad intentions, they won't do it to take the time to research it.
Yeah, and talking about that research, it's clear in your videos that you definitely do a lot of research to have facts and also have this historical perspective and not just show the place, but also make sure that you have additional elements to the images. So I think that's really interesting because then you also kind of get like a history background from it. That's really nice. And how do you prepare then for your episodes regarding that research? Do you ask locals or do you like research on the internet or just on the site? Yeah.
So usually do the research after the explorations. So we go to these places without that much knowledge, and this is somehow nice because we can get surprised. But for telling the history, of course, we need all the info. So when we are preparing the video, we are doing the research online most of the time. So when I was working for the news, I did this like basically every day. So I had a lot of experience doing this. And it's not that hard at all, actually, to find information about most of abandoned places. So I'm kind of curious why not that much more urbexers are doing this. So I see a lot of urbex photographers sharing photos, but without any additional history info. So I think that somehow maybe wasted potential stuff, or maybe the viewers want to learn the story and they just don't share it. But actually, it's kind of easy to find out the info.
Yeah, I guess it also depends on your interest. If you're just purely interested on the thrill, I guess, or the experience. Yeah, I don't know, but it's definitely interesting for the viewer to have that additional aspect for sure. So it's great. It's great that you do that. And so yeah, also in terms of the research, in terms of finding the places, is that also mostly done on the internet, or do you also maybe sometimes get recommendations from your followers now that you have a lot of followers?
Yeah, when it comes to finding the places, we have a really good network by now, like trusted sources, other explorers and locals who know the up-to-date info of some places, and they are sharing places with us or even showing us these places when we are over there. But we are also getting tips by the community, our viewers. Mostly these locations aren't that interesting to us.
Okay.
Because we have like really high standards by now, and most of the time we already knew this location they are sharing with us. So our most trusted sources are the contacts we have like on site, and it's fun to meet them one day and then explore together. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah, and regarding the history, we do most of the research online. You can find a lot of articles on the newspaper, for example, which is still available on the internet. And speaking with locals most of the time isn't an option because it's an abandoned place.
Yeah.
So it's not quite likely that you will encounter somebody in there. But we had the case with this in Sardinia. We visited an abandoned mining town, and there was an old lady walking around. She was just hiking, and we had the possibility, because we were joined by somebody who was able to speak Italian. And so they did quite some exchange, and we got infos about the place and about its history, which we would have never found online. And this is quite, that's quite amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would love to have this for every place, but unfortunately, not much people are are in abandoned places.
I mean, we could always try to ask the neighbors, but sometimes neighbors don't really like that people are going to these abandoned places next door, because most of the time they're going there to like destroy something, or I don't know, having a party. And that's why they don't really like if you go to them and say, yeah, I just explored this building. Can you tell me more about this?
Yeah.
Then they might call the police.
Plus, it's quite time consuming to do it, I think. And when we are on a trip, we mostly do like 2 or 3 locations a day for 10 or 14 days straight. And so if we would do this research in the local village, it would maybe like take double the time.
Yeah, for sure. So you mostly have like a few days dedicated to exploration, and then you just for a few weeks like work on the editing, or how do you organize yourself then when it comes to filming the videos?
We collect lots of backlog, or we collected lots of backlog by now. I think we've got footage for about the next year.
Maybe, yeah.
We don't upload much because it takes quite a lot of time for cutting and editing. So we can do like one video every 2 or 3 weeks. And so we do the trips, we gather the footage, then we come home and we are planning the next trip, and in between we are editing. But yeah, it's not like we can edit the footage straight away. So what you see on the channel mostly is about 1 year old. So.
Okay. So you do like 1 or 2 trips a year then, something like that, or like trips where you do
Most
more?
of the time.
The backlog is getting big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, last year we did like 4 or 5 bigger trips. I'm not sure. And if you're always on every trip, like record at least 6 videos, but you're publishing only every other week, there's a big backlog. That's why it takes a while until you see footage from like, it will take a while until you see the footage we were shooting at the beginning of this year. I think we will show this maybe 2023 or something. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting.
Because we have other projects we want to show first.
Yeah, so you always like, even if you don't explore places so I guess frequently, you still always have like new projects you can work on to keep the excitement, I guess.
We thought about it quite recently that we also want to do other travel projects, because when we've got that much backlog of urban exploration, we want to put some other footage in between, because most of the time you're traveling to foreign countries and they've got so much more to offer than just abandoned places. So Italy, for example, it has an amazing landscape. You could do so much interesting stuff. And yeah, we've got the possibility to do documentaries about that as well. But we just need more time for that. And then we can kind of fill in between the urban exploration videos, we can fill in other travel projects. That's what we are going to do in the next years, for sure.
Okay. And because you've been to so many countries like Germany, you were saying Italy or France, even much more, is there like, I know this might be a hard question, I don't know, but one country that marked you the most when it comes to urban exploration?
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's Italy, I guess.
Yes.
We've been there 3 times already. And this place is amazing because they don't really have the money and the interests to care about abandoned places. By interests, I don't mean they don't care about the places, but they don't care if you enter. So exploring in Italy it's damn easy. You just go inside there, and most of the people, they look at you. Sometimes they greet you while you are walking inside. And in France, for example, they are very alerted, and they've got this big opinion of private property. One time we were flying a drone to take a video of an abandoned church, and right next to it, the people were running out of their houses and were like, "You're filming my garden!" And we said, "No, we're just filming the church, and take the drone down immediately." And they've got a different opinion to private property. Italy, they don't have it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And
then there's this nice architecture in Italy. It's kind of unique, I'd say. And to see this nice architecture in an abandoned way is nice as well. Then the nature coming back and reclaiming this place. It's just the most beautiful locations, in my opinion, that we found in Italy so far.
Absolutely. Plus, we've got a quite rustical way of traveling. So we're pitching a tent almost every night. And in Italy, this feels good because you're next to the ocean or next to a river, and you've got a lot of freedom in this country to sleep wherever you want. Most of the time, you've got nice weather, you've got nice food. It's just a very, very nice
and it's
country to
definitely like a different way to visit a country and then to observe the different, cultural aspects. I mean, as a French person, for example, I've never like explored abandoned buildings, so I don't have the same experience as you. So it's funny that you have another experience of friends that I may have. So it's definitely like a way to get to know the country even further, I guess. So that's definitely an interesting point.
Do you have any experience of exploring
I
abandoned
do,
places?
I guess. I don't know, like experience, because I did it just once. But basically, for the little background story, I lived in Detroit, Michigan, in the U.S. when I was younger, and so there it's obviously like perfect for exploring abandoned buildings. So I kind of ended up seeing one. I saw, I think, a church and a school, so it was definitely very interesting for me. But I think I was like 15, so I went with my parents, because my mom is a photographer, so she was with a group exploring a lot of like buildings, and she realized that this one was quite safe, I guess, to go to. But I didn't really realize what I was doing. I think I just thought, oh, this is interesting. But yeah, I think it would be nice to do it again, like older, and have more of a like a deeper impression of what I'm doing, and not, more background experience, I guess. But yeah, it was definitely a interesting experiment. So yeah, I guess that's the only experience I have exploring an abandoned building.
Yeah, maybe after our talk, you have the urge to explore the next time you see an
Yeah,
abandoned place.
Yeah. Maybe we can help you to find a cool location in your area.
it would be definitely interesting. It's something you do have to prepare, though. I mean, as you've explained, so I'm quite like a person who likes to be I don't know, kind of in control of what I'm doing. So I don't know if I would just like randomly go to an abandoned building, but definitely it's something that I would be interesting to do in the future. Explore more, and yeah, I mean, I guess it's just hard if you don't have a community already. I don't know for you when you started, because like if you just start, like let's say I want to start exploring, I wouldn't really know, who to contact, or like where to go, where to get information. You said you have a big network, but it's kind of hard to start, I think.
Yeah, in the beginning it was more like see and enter. So you take the train, you drive around, you see something and you mark it on your map, and then on a weekend we told each other, yeah, let's just explore the place. And the places were less interesting, and there were a lot more fails, like totally trashed or completely locked up, security and so on. By now we've got a big network which provides us with a lot of information, so we know before if it's worth it to enter or not. But in the beginning, it was a lot of
Yeah.
trial and error.
Yeah, I think by now it's more easy to start with this hobby because of the infrastructure. I mean, when we started, there was no Instagram, there were only a few forums where you could get info online. By now, tons of people are doing this, what we are doing. So it's more easy to connect via Instagram or, I don't know, other platforms. You can find locals, they can share up to date info with you. So,
That's
yeah,
true.
it's quite easy now, I'd say.
Have you ever, because now I live in the Netherlands, have you ever explored the Netherlands, or never? Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay, yeah. I don't know much about urban exploration in the Netherlands, but yeah, maybe in France then it would be like good areas to explore. You talked also about, like, now that you have your YouTube channel. I was kind of wondering if that adds a certain pressure, because you've said you've been to some buildings sometimes, and then once you're there, especially at the beginning, that now it doesn't happen so much, but once you're there, you realize, okay, it's not that interesting. With your YouTube channel, do you kind of have this pressure, to produce content? And what do you do if you end up in unexpected, like, scenarios where, for example, there is no good lighting, or I don't know, the place is just not as interesting as you thought it was going to be? Does that happen often?
There's never good lighting in abandoned places.
It's, it's always dark,
Yeah, true.
too dark.
Most of the time.
Um, I would say since we're doing it since the beginning, it doesn't really add up pressure, but by now we've got a bigger audience, so we kind of don't want to go back in the quality of the content we're producing. So yes, we've got the situations when we go to a place and we say, okay, no, it's not enough for a video, then we maybe we just take pictures, or we do like a compilation of shorter abandoned places and add them up to a bigger video. Something like that's possible. But most of the time we prepare our routes, we take quite good. So let's say we've got 15 pinpoints on the map and 10 of them are good. That's 10 places still. So even if there are 5 whack places, it's still okay.
Yeah, I mean, 10 potential videos, that's a lot. That's enough for, I don't
5
know,
months.
3 months. I don't know, maybe a lot of time, basically, with just 10 locations. So
Yeah, I can imagine maybe that was more like at the beginning that you had those uncertainties, but now, like you said, with your bigger network, I guess that's less recurrent. And also, you explore a lot of different types of buildings. Some are more like private, for example, private households where families used to live. And I was kind of wondering if you prepare differently based on the buildings you're gonna explore. Like, for example, because I can imagine if you explore a private household where a family live, then you have access to the letters, the photographies of the family. That must be like a complete different feeling to if you explore an abandoned factory, for example. What could you say about that?
I think in places like factories, hospitals, and so on, you've got a feeling of how things are working, and that's quite interesting. So I don't know if there's another possibility to really climb around a factory if it's not abandoned. Same thing for hospitals, castles, and so on. So all this infrastructure stuff, it's very nice to explore because of the way it's working. Personal households give you mixed feelings, for sure. It's like we always call it interactive museum, but we call every abandoned place as an interactive museum. But it's like you can discover history firsthand, and you've got this weird feeling of this stuff actually belonged to real people. So you can read a letter handwritten 100 years ago, and that's crazy. And this stuff, it gets wasted. It should belong to a museum, that's for sure, but it doesn't, and it just rots away. And this gives you this feeling and this insight of the transience of everything. So these were real people like you and me, and they had a family and they were living there. And then at some point, they died. Their heirs weren't interested in the place, and so everything goes to rot. And it's very private, and we try to keep it. Yeah, well, I don't know. We're still exploring the place, so this is this conflict again.
Yeah.
What are we showing? What are we telling? What's too private? There are mixed opinions on that. That's for sure. Some people say you don't belong there at all, and it's none of your business. But we say it's this historical preservationist stuff again. We can definitely understand that there are mixed opinions on that, but I would say the atmosphere and this feeling of transience of everything, this is the most dominant feeling in these places.
true. And there are urban explorers who go to places and have like a code, and this code is don't touch anything. So if they watch our videos, they say, guys, please don't touch this stuff. But I mean, we are explorers. We are there to find out what happened. In this residential houses, it's mostly a really, really sad story. It's like a sad fate. Someone died, there are no heirs, or the heirs are fighting for this place, and this makes them in the end abandoned the location, and that all the personal stuff left behind, or the old family photos. So it's definitely personal. It's definitely sad to be there, and we are there to find out, what happened, and to find out why they don't care about this place anymore. There's always a reason why they abandoned this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine maybe there's mixed feelings, but I personally think it's very interesting to also like mix the pieces together and get a bigger picture based on what you're exploring. And also there is a form of respect, I would say, in for example, I've seen your video, about the celebrity, the Italian actress. There is some form of respect, I think, in like honoring kind of her memory and sharing her story with the public. So I guess then it depends. The audience has to judge what they think, but yeah, I guess it depends on the viewer. I think it's really interesting. And you talked about visiting, exploring, sorry, private households. There is some recurrent pattern when watching urbex, is that the places are often, well, of course, abandoned, but like the everything is kind of shattered. It's kind of a mess, I guess, if I could use this term, and it kind of looks like as if inhabitants just left suddenly. Do you have an explanation for that?
In residential houses, most of the time it's because they just died.
Yeah.
And then this air conflict is there, and most of the time it's some kind of conflict which allows nobody to take private property, and then of course stuff gets looted. So there's this explanation of vandals and things getting stolen, but sometimes we wonder for ourselves because if you go to a hospital and you can still find the files, this is quite sensible data, and we don't understand why they don't even take this. I mean, I can understand that they don't want to wheel out 100 beds, which are quite heavy and not worth a lot. But this sensible data, at least, they could take, but they
it has to be destroyed at least, and that's not that hard to do this.
Yeah. So no, not really.
Yeah, because often it looks like it was evacuated and people just disappeared. So that's also quite a strange feeling, because normally we're used to when you leave a household, you take your stuff and then you leave. But you have a very different impression, I think, with urbex, because it's very like just kind of the people inside just disappeared in one instant. So that's very interesting, I
There
think.
are cases where they just
see.
went bankrupt, and this means someone else belongs or the stuff, like a bank. And this bank now owns the property and what's in it, and they just let it rot. So that's like also another explanation for many of these places. It's like an easy explanation. It doesn't really fit the mystery at all. If you go there and see all the people vanished, and you think, oh, maybe they were abducted by aliens, or I don't know, and then it's just the bank who just don't care about this property anymore. Yeah, but it's like that very often.
Yeah, I can imagine it's hard also sometimes for you to know really what happened in a building.
Yeah, especially for residential houses. I mean, it's hard to find info online about residential houses and the families who live there. It's easy for factories and stuff. So what we really have to do at residential houses, we have to read the letters and stuff like that to find out what really happened.
Yeah. Most of the time we collect information, and then in the video we tell the story we think it happened, but in the comments we read a lot of abduction from aliens, or
like CIA agents.
They had to flee, or I don't know, they did weird scientific experiences in their basement.
But in the end, it's all just theories. So who knows what's true and what's not? We can't say.
That's another thing that fascinates people about these places, this mysterious aspect. So we see lots of ghost hunters and stuff like that. But to be honest, we're doing this for 10 years. We've been to places where, for example, big war crimes happened. People got tortured. So you would expect quite a lot of evil souls, or I don't know. But we never really came across something paranormal, even though we slept in lots of places. But people they like to do it, this ghost hunting stuff, and all those places are mysterious to them. So it's I can understand this connection.
Maybe you have to believe in ghosts to see them, and we don't really believe in ghosts, and that's why they don't show up to us. So I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's probably you can easily be scared in those environments,
Of course.
depending on your personality, for sure. Yeah, but it's true that that link is often made with urbex and paranormal activities. So I guess it depends on the explorers, and yeah, I was also gonna ask you a bit about that, the fact that the places are abandoned, and with the environment, we talked a lot about the environment, and you see, nature take its lead on the human race. I think we can say like that. You also mentioned one time in one of your videos that abandoned places are not only a window to the past but also to the future. Could you maybe explain a little bit more what you think about that? And also, I've seen that you're very for you it's very important, the climate and the environment in general. So how do you link urbex with the environment?
Go first. You go first.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite a big topic. So, how do I start? It's we already called it interactive museum. So you are experiencing history firsthand when you are exploring abandoned places, and often in a way that you don't normally get that close to history like you do there. So browsing through letters which are 100 years old, seeing furniture, fashion, in general objects from that, it's just always a look and often a travel into the past. But those places are abandoned, nobody lives there anymore, and you don't see any sign of human race. So nature takes over. Nature doesn't care at all what the materials are. So it eats wood, it eats iron. It doesn't matter. It just takes a different amount of time until what we realized and what we created as humans gets eaten by nature. So if we don't care about the planet, it's for sure that human race will go extinct. And this is what we mean by taking a look into the future as well, because then our homes will look like those abandoned places now. We are no longer existent. So that's pretty much the simple explained bridge between past and future when you visit an abandoned place like this. It's a look in the past, but a vision of the future as well, a possible vision. Hopefully it's not the only one.
Yeah, and we are kind of like time travelers, so to speak. So we go to these abandoned places, and of course it's about the past all the time, but it also can be about the future, because these places, as you mentioned before, look pretty like a wasteland, like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And when we started with urbex and saw these places, we always thought, nice, this looks like a scene from a zombie movie or like apocalyptic movie. And these movies always show an apocalyptic future. So it's always about the future as well. And the big climate crisis, I think we see it right now as the biggest challenge for humankind so far, and like a deadly challenge. So if we don't really start acting right now and doing more against like this big climate crisis, it will definitely destroy humankind at one point in the time. I think our generation is probably fine. Let's see. I'm not 100% sure about that, but at one point humankind will like lose the space, like its own environment where we can live. It always gets smaller, the place where humankind can live, and in the end there isn't much left. But as I mentioned earlier, there's always hope. I mean, there's always hope for nature. Maybe humankind will die, but we can't destroy the planet, so it will regenerate as we see it in every abandoned place. It always takes back. But this shouldn't be our goal. Of course, we should try to save people. But for that, we have to start acting now. And I mean, like basically every one of us.
Yeah, it's very bizarre because we are intelligent enough, that's for sure. We know what's the solution. We already got it on paper, but we don't act because we don't see this threat. It's too illusory. It's not real enough because we cannot see what's happening. And while exploring these places, we've got it right in front of our face, and we see that nothing
we see that will
lasts.
happen.
Yeah, nothing lasts. No matter who you are, where you live, it doesn't matter at all. In the end, everything rots away. That's kind of a calming thought. In the beginning, we were a bit uneasy with that because it gives you this feeling that no matter what you do, nothing lasts. But it gives you lots of freedom as well because of the same reason. No matter what you do, it doesn't last. So you can pretty much just do what you want.
Yeah, one thing I learned is stop overthinking. I mean, stop overthinking the past, stop overthinking the future, even if it's like a destructive future and all human can die. But you have to live like for the present moments.
True, and that fits quite well to your podcast, I think, because we've got a very restricted amount of time to live, and after that, everything is transient, and so spending the time following your passion is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think the only challenge now is to remember it, because like sometimes you may have like a few minutes where you're like, oh yeah, I do need to stop overthinking or just, enjoy time. And then you get caught up on like life and then you forget about it. So I think the biggest challenge is keep up with that way of thinking. And I'm sure your videos can be also like a eye-opening. Like I go back to, for example, the private households where you see the pictures and the letters, and I can say at least personally, it's very eye-opening when you see, okay, like that will be in the future. I will also be like a memory, and we all, uh, leave at some point this planet. So it does. I agree with what you were saying, but you were saying nothing less, and on the other hand, you can see with those again pictures and letters that you do also you can leave a trace or a mark. So I think it's an interesting kind of balance, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the places we explore, they are mostly abandoned between 2 to 50 years, sometimes a bit longer, but on the time axis of the world, this is quite nothing. So
True.
200 years, the same house, it falls apart and you don't discover nothing anymore. Of course, in our lifespan, this is quite much, 50 years, but not on the lifespan on this world.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there were dinosaurs living on this planet. It's crazy. Giant lizards.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like at the same time you need to think about it, but then it might be a bit if you think about it too much, I don't know, you might get stuck also just not knowing what you can do as a single human being, to really make an impact, I guess, also.
Yeah, stop overthinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but you also have to develop you also have to accept that it's real. Because most of the people, they close their eyes and they don't think of it. But to be honest, we should think of it every day. And that's a problem. Like you said, it's not easy to see what you can do as a single person, but it's not about what you can do as a single person. Of course, it is as well. Kind of be aware of what you're consuming, the way you're consuming. But it is kind of a mindset you have to have. And if lots of people have this mindset, then somebody or something will change. That's for sure. But as long as most of our society doesn't care, nothing will change. For sure.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think that's why showing those abandoned buildings is I use the term again, like eye-opening for many people. So I don't know if these are comments that you get often, maybe from followers, that it helps to kind of get a sense of where we're going in the future. Is that something you want to work on even more in the future on your channel? This environmental aspect.
I think so, yeah, because it's really, really important. So far, we are always showing the legacy, so what's left of a place. And now we have to start working on our legacy, meaning the legacy of people, which means, in a nutshell, to save the planet. So to do our part of this, we are working on a climate series or a big climate film at the moment in connection to abandoned places. It's hopefully only the first step of this journey, of this climate journey, so to speak. Last year we filmed this already. We traveled all over Germany to see how brown coal mining causes abandoned places. So it's actually pretty interesting because to dig for brown coal, we were using for like energy production, digging for that causes a lot of people to leave their homes because there's a brown coal directly under their homes. So they have to be settled elsewhere, meaning there are a lot of ghost towns in Germany. And because this is also happening in Germany, even though Germany declared to exit brown coal in like less than 10 years, as far as I remember correctly. So we traveled to the other end of Germany to one village where people actually fighting for their home against this big brown coal conglomerate. And yeah, we were interviewing them, and actually it's pretty sad what's happening there, because this brown coal stuff, it's all funded by the government, and it's only the little people fighting the big state. And so far it looks really bad for them. Yeah, and in some cases their family had to left like their original hometown. They were resettled to another town, and then like 10 years later they have to resettle again because this big hole where the brown coal is in it, it's getting bigger day by day, and there more towns are eaten. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. Even though it's still happening, even though Germany wants to quit brown coal very soon.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I think it's great that with your channel, you have a platform and you can decide where you want to take it. I don't know, you might focus sometime more on the environment, and then another year you focus on another topic. So it's nice that you can have that freedom to decide, okay, what topics you want to focus on, and then you can also change. It's not like you have to always talk about the same topic. So because you said you kind of started this channel not really thinking about it too much and not knowing where it was going to lead. So it's great that now you're at that stage where you can take it wherever you want, basically.
Yeah. I think it always will stay about curiosity. And curiosity brought us to this climate thing, because curiosity means awareness as well. If you're curious about something, you want to know why certain things are the way they are, and then you become aware of some topics. And so this is just one thing we do, and we think it's quite important. That's why we put, in the last time, we put lots of effort in it. But still, we will continue with urban exploration and other travel projects, that's for sure. But there's just so much climate problematic topics out there you have to cover, because people have to know about it. Maybe then they realize, hopefully.
Yeah, meaning it's not far in the future, because people are abandoning their homes already today because of climate change, and it's only getting worse year by year. And we have to show that this abandonment is happening today already, to show it to the people so they can face the reality.
Of course. And when it comes to the environment, do you then do a lot of research on your side, or you said you went, for example, to talk with in Germany with locals that were suffering from a certain problem? Like, how do you intend to bring this issue to your audience?
For that, we did a lot of interviews with like the experts who really know the stuff, and of course with the people who are affected. So when we were traveling to this town, that is facing extinction. We were interviewing the residents, and yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's very interesting. I'm looking forward to see the content and continue to see the abandoned buildings and learn more about them. Before we finish also with the episode, I mean, we talked about it throughout the whole episode about what are the advantages of urbex and what urbex has personally, how it personally impacted you. But as this podcast, as I said, is about passions and also like how passions can help you overcome fears, I kind of wanted to talk to you about that for a few minutes. How do you think urbex, in a summary, how do you think urbex has impacted you personally and made you grow as a person?
So, I mean, of course, if you start with this exploring abandoned buildings, it's creepy and it's dangerous. But after 10 years, I think it's not creepy anymore. So for us as humans, it's pretty normal to be afraid of the dark. I mean, sure, I can see that. But if you start facing your fears, for example, going to dark abandoned places, it's not that much of a fear anymore. And then you realize there isn't really a reason anymore to be afraid of the dark nowadays. So as long as you bring a good flashlight, of course. And yeah, I mean, you have to start facing your fears.
Yeah, it's
that's
like
for sure.
exposure. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And urban exploration always gives you a different perspective on stuff, because when you walk past an abandoned building, all you see from outside is this facade. And then you find an entrance into the building, and suddenly you are in this position to explore everything. You can pretty much, there are no such rules as like in our society, in our everyday life, but you can just explore every room. You can go through stuff. You can discover history, and this gives you can take this lesson, so to say, on your normal life as well, to take a look behind the facade, and this gives you so much new impressions that you just, if you stay curious, you will always learn. And learning, because you asked how we grow as a person, learning makes you growing. And so that's what urban exploration taught us, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And then we had a whole conversation about the environment. It also makes you, I mean, I guess it makes you also, how could I say, like, you talked about learning. It gives you more knowledge on certain issues, like the environment, for example. And it's kind of like learning, but outside the classroom, you know. So I always think this is very interesting to experience situations for yourself. And I mean, obviously, it's great to watch the videos, but it's also great if you can do it yourself and really get the benefit directly, for sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
exploring
so
abandoned places is just a great way to experience history firsthand. I mean, it's basically what you are doing. Experience history, but in a nice way, not like in a classroom in school back then, which was mostly boring. But now you really want to do this. You can explore, then you're doing the research and learn a lot. So it makes a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah. But like you
yeah.
said, it's nice to watch the videos, but it's even nicer to do it yourself. So we don't want people to watch the videos and then they say, that was a nice exploration. It's better for them to get motivated by our explorations and to do it themselves. But still, we are showing places to people they normally wouldn't see, because for people from the US, for example, it's very hard to get to Italy, to France, and so on, the whole of Europe. So we show them those places, but still we hope that lots of them will decide to go exploring on their own, even though it doesn't have to be abandoned places. You can explore pretty much everywhere. You can go to the forest and start collecting shrooms. Even that's exploring in some kind of way.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of funny how it becomes maybe like more interesting to people when it's mysterious. Because if you think about like museums, for example, a lot of people like they're not gonna be like thrilled to go to the museum, but then when it's you going directly into the abandoned building, it's for sure a different feeling. So yeah, it's interesting how those places, if they were habited, then people would probably not pay that much attention to them. But then since they're abandoned, then suddenly they become that hotspot.
Yeah, because it's like a gray zone that is kind of out of our society.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a
Yeah.
space where you don't have the normal rules which apply to our living, and so it gets very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it must definitely feel like a parallel world. Like in the morning you start, you're in the normal world, if we can say, then you enter that place and suddenly you're in a totally different world. So that's
Yeah,
definitely an experience that
that's
looks great.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why for me my favorite places are ghost towns, because when you enter them, you completely forget where you just came from.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you finish the exploration, you step out of it, you get into the car, and suddenly you're into normal life again.
Yeah.
And before that, you can think yourself in pretty much every scenario you just can think of. It's very nice.
And how does that transition go actually? Because I can imagine that when you go out of these places, you don't just come back like suddenly back into our world, if I may say. Like, how does it happen? Like, which kind of feelings do you have when you are done with an exploration?
Well, it feels pretty harsh.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a slow transition, because as soon as you get out of the ghost town, let's take the ghost town as a general example, um, all this impressions of normal society gets to you. Like you've got the car noises, you've got music, people chatting all around. Suddenly you're in the busy world again, and before that you only had birds and all those quiet noises. Which doesn't mean that I don't like the normal life. Um,
And yeah,
Not at
well,
all.
it's a nice break, of course.
Yeah, it's a break, but it's not like you're floating back into normal life. It's pretty much you climb over the fence, you land on the other side of the fence, and you're back into it.
Yeah.
And it's nice as long as it's lasts. So it's really fun to explore, but you really don't want to live in a world without people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we are also really hoping to save the planet with all this climate thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah,
like
people tend to make this, how do you say it? Like to give it a romantic side, this whole wasteland feeling, but it's not at all. Imagine living in a world where there's no more water, almost no food, very extreme weather. It's not nice at all.
no, yeah, for
So
sure.
we should definitely avoid that.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, also with your explorations, when you visit like heavy sites, if we can say, like for example hospitals, and maybe you have access to documents that can be like hard to watch, like I can imagine that also emotionally when you get out of these places, you're not just back to normal instantly as well.
Yeah.
Hmm. So that's also an aspect, I guess, when you have to be physically ready to enter the place, but also emotionally ready, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of excited what expects you, because you don't know what expects you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I talked about in the beginning, this looking behind every corner, and then there could be everything. And that what fascinated us in our first exploration, because this room, I remember it quite good, this room with the red paint, which looks like somebody shot himself.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very strange to see this. And there was no way we were expecting this. And so this was kind of the moment when we said, okay, kind of everything is possible in this place. And we came across a lady who was practicing her instrument, because there was a nice acoustic, and her neighbors don't get disturbed by her practicing at home. Then you've got street artists who use the whole place as a canvas, and they finally got the space and the time to really develop their skills. And it's great. It's a nice place for everything. It's cool.
Yeah.
You never know what to expect.
Yeah, it does definitely seem interesting. And in terms of, because now we were talking about like going there to find maybe like a relaxing spot or just to explore if you're curious, and then you recommended, to people to not just watch the videos but go there themselves. So just to finish this podcast, I think it would be nice to mention also, if apart from planning, just such as taking your mask for chemicals or taking gloves, more like equipments, physically, would you recommend to people to train, or like, did you yourself train the first time you went to climb, maybe, or you don't think that's necessary?
I think an active way of living is quite enough. So
Okay.
it's not like we build up a boot camp to practice jumping fences or something like that. No, but yeah, you should be capable of just walking around, maybe climbing a ladder and stuff like that, squeezing through a hole, jumping over a fence. But it's not like we did specialized training for urban exploration.
Yeah, you don't have to train. And I mean, if you can't climb a wall or a fence, or the hole is too small, then just leave it and go to another place.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't work for you, then
there are locations with no fence at all, or like, if nobody cares about the location, they've got no security and no protection of the place, so you can just basically walk in. But please be careful, because people died on this hobby, and yeah, be careful. It's a rotten place, so it's really safe.
But to conclude, then you would say it's accessible to anyone. You don't need to be like super fit or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Okay. Yeah, because I do think it can be a bit impressive. Like from my position, for example, you may think, okay, I have to be like extremely ready or something for that kind of experience. So it's also, of course, yeah, be conscious of the risk, but it's nice to hear that it's accessible to anyone, and that I guess you have different levels also, right? Like you have buildings that are more difficult to explore and some that are maybe more, that are easier. So you just have to kind of know where you're going, I guess, also.
Yeah. In some places, the exploration of some places can also be like an expedition. For example, exploring an underground mine with a network of 32 kilometers. For that, okay, you should be physically fit. Or I don't know, some places you can only reach by walking 5 kilometers through dense forest. This one, yeah.
Sometimes you need a boat. So yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you have to climb up a hill in the heat. Yeah, okay. But a lot of places you can just get out of the car, park right in front of it, and enter. So there's something for everybody.
And I guess it's more common than we think also, right? Abandoned places. Like now, for example, on the top of my head, I can't really think of abandoned places next to where I am. But from this conversation, I get the feeling that it's actually not that complicated to find abandoned places.
There's this phenomenon of you kind of you get into a hobby, and suddenly you see this all around. Just because you never saw abandoned place in your hometown doesn't mean there aren't any, but maybe just it wasn't on your radar because you don't cared about them before, and now you see a facade or you see a tree growing on the roof, and you say like, oh, a tree doesn't grow on the roof, which on a building that's still active, so this has to be abandoned. And then you take a closer look, you see a window that's smashed in, or you see that there's no more house number in front of it, so it should be abandoned, and then most of the time it is. So
yes, I think there are abandoned places everywhere, and it will be like this through the course of time. It always was like that, and it always be like that as long as there will be humans and we are building structures. So yeah, you just have to go out and search for them. Maybe at first they are invisible for you because you are not really aware of them, but yeah, as soon as you are aware, you will see them.
Yeah, well, this conversation definitely made me more curious to go and explore myself. Who knows? Maybe in in a while I will plan an exploration. I would definitely be interested to do so, and I'm sure that you inspire many viewers to do the same and to explore. So that's really great, and I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation to know more about you and also about your work, and just get more details about like how you became urban explorers, because I think many people are interested in this passion, even though you said that it's a bit divided sometimes, the opinions. I do think there is a strong community that is very interested, whether you're an expert or not. I'm sure it's definitely interesting to hear those kind of conversations. I will of course leave all the information in the description with your YouTube channel and your Instagram. And I thank you once more for taking the time to come to this channel. I know you may be very busy, so it's definitely I'm very happy that you took the time to come here. Is there a last word maybe that you have?
Yeah, I just want to say something about passion because that whole podcast is about it, and I really like the theme you're picking here. So I see that lots of people who got a passion, they don't follow it because they're kind of afraid to do so. They've got this other regulations of society. Maybe sometimes it's not quite safe to follow their passion, or they're aiming for something bigger and they tend to forget that they've got their passion. But I can only say for us it worked out quite well because we had this passion of exploring and urban exploration in general, and so we go for it, and that's what we do for a living by now. And I think more people should do it. So I want to encourage everybody to just follow their passion and don't overthink too much because that's toxic.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you are a perfect example. Like you said, you just started uploading videos and then it slowly grew. So I think it's very nice to have examples like you. It's definitely encouraging, even for me who started this podcast not long ago. We were talking earlier about doing it for like financial reason or like for passion, and I kind of like experience right now, because I don't earn money from the podcast, that I do it really because I find those conversations interesting, and I think that's the whole value of this. So like, to add on to what you say, I think it's great to have examples like you, and of course to follow your passion because you're passionate, of course, and then it will, I guess, just progress by itself with time.
Exactly. But people, they try to force to like they've got a passion and they tend to not follow it anymore because there's no profit and it doesn't make sense. I don't have time for this anymore. But after all, that's what our life is about, because we've got a limited amount of time, and
Hmm.
spending the time with something you're passionate about is the best thing you can do.
Yes,
Hmm.
and we
Yeah.
invested a lot of time in this passion. Like, it took us, after starting uploading the first video on YouTube, it took us 5 years to get to the point where we can make a living from it. So yeah, you
Hmm.
just have to go through and follow it.
Would you have advice maybe for that transition? Because I can imagine maybe people listening to you and that have a passion, but that do need to, earn money and make a living, might wonder, okay, but like, what do I do, for those 5 years, for example? How do I find the time to work on my passion, but also live on the side?
Yeah.
When we started, we were studying,
Yeah.
so we had like a main profession, so to speak. So when we were doing the urbex stuff, editing videos, we were doing this in our free time, maybe after we finished working, or after you finished learning. So, but we did this like long enough, consistently. Maybe
Hmm.
not every
Yeah.
day, but like we invested a lot of time in this.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So then you would just say, even if you might have downs or ups, just keep going, and eventually you do get result out of it if you just keep going for long enough.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for those words, and thank you again for being on the podcast. it was very great to have you on the show. Like I said again, I'm glad you took some time to answer my questions, and I think it's very valuable to hear your advice for people like me who don't know much about urbex, or for other people who might be more advanced. And it's definitely making me want to go out there and explore. So that's what I want also from this podcast, is to, you know, inspire to people to get up and just take action, I guess. So that's very nice, and I really liked this conversation. So thank you once again, and I will also give you the opportunity to maybe say what your Instagram is, if people can contact you there, or if you have any last like project you want to share.
You can find us on Instagram. Our site, our page is called BWT Urbex in one word, but I guess just check out the description or show notes and you will find this link as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and we are
great.
always posting our current projects there, like a lot of photos. Mainly we are uploading videos on YouTube, but we are also taking a lot of photos and we are sharing them on Instagram.
Okay, yeah, well, of course, like you said, all the information will be on the description. Thank you again very much for joining me on this podcast, and thank you for the listeners to be also with us today. The Instagram of the podcast is _podcast. All the information is below, of course. If you have any questions, you can contact me also on Instagram, and I will be happy to answer you. So thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon on the next episode of The Life They Live.
Bye.
Bye bye. And thanks for having us.